Hello, I'm Maciej Mikos and you're watching World News Tonight live from Warsaw. Europe and the US are threatening massive sanctions against Russia if Moscow rejects this proposal, a 30-day unconditional ceasefire. Today, the West presented the Kremlin with a clear demand. What will Vladimir Putin do? We'll have more on that in a moment, but first let's take a look at tonight's headlines. Hungary and Ukraine expelled diplomats over tit-for-tat spy claims. Who will come out on top in the Albanian elections? Corruption and the European Union are the main campaign topics. And will the new Pope reconcile with Donald Trump? Before his election, he was a staunch critic of the US president. If Russia rejects the ceasefire proposal, there will be no doubt who is in favor of war, said the Polish Prime Minister. Today in Ukraine, the leaders of Poland, France, Great Britain and Germany met with Volodymyr Zelenskyy. The Kremlin has called statements by European countries confrontational and has dismissed the threat of new sanctions. Our Ukraine correspondent, Oscar Terji, reports from Kyiv.
The leaders of Britain, France, Germany and Poland arrived in Kyiv on Saturday for a united show of support for the Ukrainian government and to call for a 30-day unconditional ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine to begin on Monday, May 12th. Now, the leaders, British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz and French President Emmanuel Macron threatened massive sanctions against Moscow should the Kremlin fail to comply with this call for a ceasefire on sea, land and air to begin on Monday. Now let's take a listen to the press conference given with President Zelenskyy and the leaders of Britain, France, Germany and Poland earlier on Saturday.
Today we will focus on how to build and guarantee real and lasting security. Key points: a 30-day ceasefire backed with sanctions.
I pay tribute to the courage and resilience of the Ukrainians who have fought this conflict for 3 long years. It is an important moment.
I think our common objective is to secure this unconditional ceasefire for 30 days.
The new German government is fully on board to make this group a success. Our engagement will be substantive, and we are doing this for the courageous people of Ukraine. We are doing it for our security and the entire European Union and the entire European continent as well.
We are here to show our unity, and this unity is not an abstract slogan. It is something real.
Now, the European leaders also had a phone conversation with Donald Trump following this meeting in Kyiv. So at the moment, there seems to be a unity between Washington and Europe moving forward on this issue of a 30-day ceasefire. The question is now, what happens come Monday if Moscow fails to comply with these Western leaders' demands? It's Oz Chatterjee reporting from Kyiv for TVP World.
Poland has signed a defense treaty with France in the first such agreement between Paris and a non-neighboring country. As the West closes ranks in order to bolster its security, Russia looks to strengthen its position in the global south. The victory parade in Moscow gathered not only leaders such as China's Xi Jinping and Brazil's Luiz Lula da Silva, but also the leaders of Serbia and EU member Slovakia. Marek Sil reports.
Poland and France have sealed a bilateral pact on defense, energy and nuclear cooperation. The treaty was signed by the Polish Prime Minister and the French President.
We included here a clause of joint assistance, which is an extension of our cooperation under NATO and the EU.
This means a commitment to support one another in case of an armed attack. Macron said the French army could provide such assistance within 30 days.
Without this very close cooperation, without this friendship, without this genuine cooperation, there will be no united Europe.
The signing of the treaty marks a significant pivot in Polish-French relations.
This wouldn't have happened if not for the context, which is marked by the continued war in Ukraine on the one hand, and the re-election of Donald Trump in the United States.
But as Western allies, Poland and France, struck a treaty, the East was also closing ranks. Moscow saw the annual Victory Day parade, and the list of foreign guests this year included some of Russia's closest allies. Present were China's Xi Jinping, while the Global South was represented by another of the BRICS nations, Brazil.
Russia, together with China, this dragon bear modus operandi of strategic coordination, wants to look up to the Global South.
North Korean generals could be seen at the Victory Day parade. But not Kim Jong-un, the North Korean dictator who only visited the Russian embassy in Pyongyang.
I consider all the brave soldiers who participated in the Kursk operation to be heroes and the highest representatives of the nation's honor.
The biggest controversy, however, was sparked by the presence of two European leaders, including the Serbian president and the Slovakian prime minister.
Prime Minister Fico was quite close to Russia, and we know the same about President Vučić. So here, I don't think we are experiencing. We are seeing a shift. We are seeing a continuation.
Fico and Putin held bilateral talks at the Kremlin, one of few such meetings by European leaders since the start of the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022.
I reject the policy of the Iron Curtain, which is actually emerging and exists between Europe and the Russian Federation. So I want to extend a hand for cooperation beyond this Iron Curtain.
Fico's decision to visit Moscow has been criticized by other EU leaders.
Attending this military parade is a disgrace.
Marek Steele, TVP World.
Although Hungary's Viktor Orbán decided not to travel to Moscow, his government's alleged actions have led to serious tensions between Budapest and Kyiv. Ukrainian officials claim they have uncovered a Hungarian spy network operating in the country. This has led to both countries expelling two diplomats in a tit-for-tat move. Natalia Komarov has more on this latest spy scandal.
While European foreign ministers were gathering in Lviv to move forward with the creation of a special tribunal devoted to Russia's war crimes, the Hungarian foreign minister was expelling Ukrainian diplomats from Budapest. The reason?
For the first time in the history of Ukraine, the security service has exposed a Hungarian military intelligence agent network that was carrying out espionage activities to the detriment of our state.
Two men were detained for allegedly gathering information on military activities, as well as studying the views of local population, specifically their potential reaction if Hungarian troops were to enter the region. The Ukrainian intelligence service SBU uncovered a network of Hungarian spies operating in the western region of Transcarpathia, where there is a significant Hungarian minority. Budapest has been attempting to sow division between them and Ukrainians, but so far to no avail.
I've never heard about any significant secessionist movement among the Hungarian minority there.
After Ukrainian services announced the detention of Hungarian spies, Budapest responded by downplaying the issue as, quote, Ukraine's anti-Hungarian propaganda.
We will not tolerate such defamatory actions being launched continuously in Ukraine against Hungary, against the Hungarian people. That is why we expelled two spies from Hungary, working under diplomatic cover at the Ukrainian embassy in Budapest.
And naturally, Kyiv responded similarly.
Two Hungarian diplomats must leave our country within 48 hours.
Something that would be coming from a friendly country, but more from a hostile country.
And for a country at war, such an escalation is an existential threat.
Precedented that Hungary is undertaking work which is done by the Russian intelligence service.
For TVP World, Natalia Komarov.
The selection of the first American Pope in history has been welcomed in the United States, with many Americans overjoyed with the new pontiff. But the new head of the Catholic Church may rapidly find himself clashing with another American leader, that is President Trump. Our correspondent, Alex Cadier, has been at the Vatican this week and joins me now. Alex, good evening. So would you call this pick of Pope a Trump backlash?
Well, that's certainly how a lot of allies of Donald Trump feel about the selection of Pope Leo XIV. We heard Steve Bannon, a former advisor to President Trump, calling the move unbelievable because of Cardinal Provost, as he was then, criticizing Vice President J.D. Vance for his position on immigration. We know that historically Cardinal Provost, especially having spent so many years in South America, has very clear views on how migrants and refugees should be treated. Those views do not align with those of the US government as it stands now. So he is the first American pontiff. Not sure he will be America first, and that will potentially set up, as you said, a clash with President Trump and his administration. Now, to be very clear, the Catholic Church does try to avoid to wade into party politics. They will not be Democrat or Republican. They will not be clashing directly with the president on every issue, but there are clearly values here that do not align between both leaders. So that will be a big question. We know from his brother, who spoke to the New York Times, he said, "I know he's not happy with what's going on with immigration. I know that for a fact. How far he'll go is only one's guess, but he won't just sit back. I don't think he will be the silent one." So that, of course, opens up a potential for criticism from the first American pontiff of the American administration, something that allies of Donald Trump have been very reactive to. But to be clear, neither Pope Leo nor Donald Trump have said anything that would set up this kind of clash. Donald Trump, for now, has just said that having the first American pope is a great honor, and the pontiff himself speaking about peace and unity, but in no way addressing any political issues. Now, we will hear from the Pope again at that balcony, that window behind me, delivering his first prayer since the initial blessing when he was selected as Pope. Perhaps that will give us some clues, but certainly if we look at the past, there are definitely unaligned values between the Pope and the US President.
That was Alex Cadier reporting from the Vatican. Thank you very much, Alex. On Sunday, Albanians will head to the polls. The Balkan country will choose its next parliament amidst a campaign centered around European integration, corruption, and lack of trust towards politicians. Aisha Baci has this report.
12 years in power, 3 consecutive terms, and now Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama is campaigning for a 4th. His message: stability, modernization, and EU integration.
We have a passport to travel to Europe, same like the Japanese travel to Europe. But we don't have a passport to live as equal citizens. Today, we are at the front door of Europe, and that door is now open for us.
Since 2010, the Council of the European Union approved visa-free travel to the EU for citizens of Albania. And since 2022, EU accession negotiations have started, even though the country was given candidate status in 2014.
We must see this election in the lens of EU integration and what it means for Albania.
The incumbent Edi Rama's Socialist Party is leading the polls, followed by the main opposition Democratic Party of Albania. Yet public trust in politics is waning.
These elections will not bring anything. People will continue to leave the country.
I think the most problem for Albania there are corruption.
If laws are followed, then all good, because we are not missing laws, but they don't respect them.
However, Rama holds an advantage through SPAC, the anti-corruption body co-designed with the EU support. It's indicted ministers, mayors, and even opposition leaders. For some, it's a proof of accountability. For others, it's a political weapon.
The lobbying is to present to the new administration the truth about what happened in this country.
The elections will echo in Kosovo and North Macedonia, where ethnic Albanian communities watch closely and will be able to vote for the first time. While Rama insists on regional cooperation, opposition forces have flirted with nationalistic rhetoric.
Democratic Party leader has even adopted a slogan making reference to the President Trump, Make America Great Again.
And it doesn't end there. The Republican strategist behind Trump's 2024 comeback, Chris Lasivita, is now aiding Albania's main opposition leader, Sali Berisha, in his bid for a political revival. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Edi Rama has tightened security ties with the West, signing a landmark security and defense partnership with the EU last December, further anchoring Albania within NATO and EU sphere.
This agreement shows that we will do more together. It clearly shows investment to our common security. It shows that Albania will be around all these important tables where we discuss the security and defense of Europe.
But while both major parties are aligned on foreign policy, the most pressing question remains: can Albania carry out the necessary reforms to join the EU?
We do not want European integration on paper. We want standards to be improved for people.
On May 11th, Albania's 2025 elections will shape more than a parliament. They'll shape the pace of EU enlargement, the cohesion of NATO's southeast flank, and the future of a region long caught between reform and regression. For TVP World, I'm Aisha Badja.
A new museum has opened at the site of the former Schindler factory in the Czech Republic, marking a significant chapter in Holocaust remembrance. It honors the 1,200 Jews saved by Oskar Schindler during World War II. Descendants of survivors, politicians and visitors from around the world gathered for the opening, reflecting on a legacy of courage and humanity. Sasha Farbach has this report.
He who saves one life saves the world entire. Now that was etched on a ring given to Oskar Schindler here at this site in the Central Czech Republic. We are right now, 80 years ago, is on the site where Oskar Schindler managed to smuggle out and save 1,200 Jews from certain death from Krakow. That's an important place here today as well, as this marks now this opening of this museum to tell the story of how that happened, of the survivors, but also history of this region, also the family here that received back this land and is now opening it up to the public. A very, very important subject. And also it's about survivors, and we had the chance to speak to one of the descendants, the first so-called Schindler Jew baby. Now this is Hadassah Bau, the daughter of Joseph Bau, who was critically important to working with Oskar Schindler, forging documentation in order to save lives.
Our father actually was the forger here, and he saved all the 1,200 Jews. He did for them papers, he did for them all the identity card, what they need, and never told. He stood only to help. This is the place for education, to learn about our parents, about how they lived, and all the people that one need to love each other. They need to love. Hatreds need to be in the garbage. And here you can understand this deeper. Because of this is so important.
Now also here, many visitors from around the region, around the world, descendants, and also politicians from the region. It's also a place about reconciliation. We've spoken to the German ambassador about what this place means and how it serves its purpose also for reconciliation between not just the Jewish people and Germany, but also this region.
What we've seen over the last 80 years is that you can actually heal wounds that everybody thought are completely unhealable, that you can build bridges across rivers that you thought are completely impossible to cross.
90 years ago, this place was that small bit of light in the darkness. Now here listening to the various people attending, those involved also with the movie Schindler's List, also based on that book, Schindler's Ark, there's an enduring message that there's always hope here in the darkest of times. That's Sasha Farbach at the Schindler factory in the Central Czech Republic for TVP World.
The US, along with its European allies, calls for a 30-day ceasefire in Ukraine. If Russia fails to accept the proposal, it may face mass sanctions. The coalition of the willing leaders have gathered today in Kyiv to discuss just that. And to talk about it and more, we're joined by Roland Friedenstein, expert in international security and co-founder of the Brussels Freedom Hub. Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
So, the most important question is, what will Russia do with the Western proposal of a 30-day ceasefire?
Well, theoretically, that's the billion-dollar question, or euro if you prefer, but or zloty.
No rubles, though.
But I think we can make an educated guess. Russia has already indicated by the government spokesman Peskov, allegedly there's even a Putin quote saying that Russia will continue to attach conditions to this 30-day ceasefire, conditions which are unacceptable to Ukraine and therefore also unacceptable to the West.
Therefore, what will Donald Trump do?
That is the next billion-euro question. I think, honestly, today was the best day for Ukraine, for Europe, and for all freedom-loving people in the world since early March with the Oval Office scene between the two presidents, Zelenskyy and Trump. Because the West is now very much tempted, and the Europeans want this, to actually increase the sanctions against Russia and use crippling sanctions for a change. You know, we're not talking about increasing the list of persons that now can't travel to the West or have bank accounts in the West.
So what would cripple Russia?
Secondary sanctions. Secondary sanctions means measures against all companies from the West that still cooperate with Russia, and possibly even third countries. That has not been the case today. The US have so far completely rejected this, but seeing that Putin does not want peace, Trump may come around. And I think we saw the beginning of a new consensus, Euro-American consensus, on Russia and Ukraine today in Kyiv.
So if I get you right, the sanctions would be imposed on Kazakhstan if it resells the Russian fossil fuels.
That is one possibility. I mean, you know, the devil is in the details. But secondary sanctions means that we go after the instruments with which Russia has largely avoided the immediately dramatic effect of the sanctions regime that we've had for the last almost 3.5 years.
Right. Now, 4 European leaders of the coalition of the willing came to Kyiv today. President of France, Chancellor of Germany, and Prime Ministers of the UK and Poland. Now, what do you make of Donald Tusk's attendance?
I mean, this is a big success. It's a big success for Donald Tusk personally, for this Polish government, because by size, Poland is not quite in the league of the other 3 countries here. And nevertheless, Poland is not only has the presidency of the European Council at the moment, but is also arguably the strongest military power when it comes to land forces in Europe currently, and its military power will grow. It is located close to Ukraine, obviously, and it therefore plays a particular role also as a conduit, as a transit country for military assistance to Ukraine. I think 95% of all Ukrainian military assistance passes through Poland. So Poland has an important word to say here.
And yet, Warsaw still opposes sending any peacekeeping soldiers to Ukraine.
Well, Poland is engaged in supporting Ukraine in so many ways, and its eastern border in other places is under such concrete threat. You know, I'm talking about Belarus especially, that Poland has good reasons to at least not say clearly at this point we're going to send 1,000 or 5,000 or so and so many soldiers. That is now up to the other powers.
Right, talking about other powers, only a day before the meeting in Kyiv, Poland has signed a treaty with with France. Now, how much does it bolster Poland's security?
I think we need to see the political symbolism here, the political content. Let's remember, France and Poland were on opposite sides of most European debates in security for 2, maybe 3 decades. I remember the first Polish-French spats on transatlantic security and how to confront Russia and so on from the 90s. So to have such a blooming bilateral relationship is a value in itself. Mm-hmm. And second, there's always concrete things that two militarily important countries in Europe, such as France and Poland, can agree to work together on, and to, joint production of certain weapon systems, exchange of best practice, and so on. But I think that really the main significance of this is political, that France and Poland are now officially on the same side of the barrier when it comes to the security debate in the West.
This is not a surprise, but what is a bit surprising, there was no mention of the French nuclear umbrella over Poland.
Yeah, look, such a nuclear umbrella is easier said than done. If you look at the French nuclear program, the French...
by the way, that was France's proposal, right?
Yes, but let's look exactly what President Macron and other French leaders, also military leaders, have said about the possibility of concretely extending the French nuclear umbrella to other countries. They have never said we can do this at the snap of a finger. The French nuclear deterrent is a weapon of last resort, and it cannot cover all stages of nuclear deterrence, from the light tactical to the heavy tactical to the finally strategic level. The French nuclear weapons are there for, if France itself, in its hexagonal form, is attacked, and its existence is heavily threatened. In that case, French nuclear weapons come into place. By its numbers, by its shape, by its type of weapons, most of it is sea-based on submarines, the French nuclear deterrent that cannot cover other European countries as it is now. Now, what will happen in the future, and Germany's Chancellor Merz has also started talking about this, is that France and Britain, by the way, will maybe modernize their nuclear forces and maybe develop their nuclear doctrines in such a way that they can in fact extend the umbrella to other European democracies. But that's for the future.
Right, so we have new treaties in the West, but then on the other hand, in the East, there was a parade in Moscow. Now, what do you make of Slovakia's Prime Minister attendance?
From the coalition of the willing to the coalition of the killing, as I read on social media today. So, no, the fact that the leader of a member state of the European Union, and still a democratic country, goes celebrate Dzień Pobiedy, Victory Day in Moscow, alongside the mass killer Putin, is a violation of the fundamental values on which the European Union is built. And therefore it's unacceptable. There will be consequences in the way other European leaders will deal with Slovakia. Probably won't be any formal sanctions against Slovakia, but Fico will feel the heat.
And what about Serbian leader? Serbia is aspiring to become an EU member.
Yes, right. The more Serbia's partners in the European Union watch Vucic's behavior vis-à-vis Putin, I think the more the day of Serbia joining the European Union as a full member is somehow disappearing in the distance. It will happen eventually, but I can't actually see Mr. Vucic becoming a member of the European Council along with the others. I don't think that's going to happen very soon.
As Donald Trump says, never Say never. Roland Friedenstein, expert in international security and co-founder of the Brussels Freedom Hub, was our guest tonight. Thank you very kindly. And thank you for watching, and stay with us for much more news and features here on TVP World.